Clement, we're starting.
Oh, okay, it didn't say live yet, so I wasn't sure. Okay, there it is. Today, hello, we're talking about ethics today and how ethics pertains to leadership, and some of the things, making our own definition of leadership and how it pertains into the world today. Ethics is a very complicated process, set up by different values and beliefs that people have. And I think one of the things that I've learned from this chapter is that it seems like ethics would be something that's kind of brought across the board, and everybody kind of should have the same principles. But obviously, when you look at the leaders in the world today, past and present, you see that they all have different values and morals, which break up different ethical decisions and how they handle different situations when they're presented with them. For instance, you look at the political landscape today, and without focusing on one individual, it seems today that most leaders are expected to be of high ethical character and value, and that for mistakes by leaders today. If you look at politics or even businesses, when they hire a CEO, the CEOs are often fired and interchanged out when the company starts doing bad, whether they have a bad accident happen or something, a bad marketing campaign, or the business starts going downhill for whatever reason. They blame it on the CEO that they hire, and then they get rid of them. And so decisions that those leaders make, oftentimes they're held up to that standard, and there's no room for error in politics. People make mistakes all the time. They're humans. They have skeletons in their closet at some point in their life, and then if it gets discovered, everybody holds them up to this incredibly high standard and throws them out to be skewered in the public, and they don't stand behind those leaders. So you almost have to have a perfect ethical report card in order to survive at the top nowadays.
Yeah. I agree. I think one of the things that I learned from the chapter, as you know, as some of the things that you said, Clement, and also was, that you don't have to be in a top leadership position to really embed ethics in our everyday, whether, at least in our working environment. And I think for us, because even as we learn about leadership, we all are leaders within our roles, within our organizations, and how we embed ethics in our daily work. And I think for me, it was one of the things that I bring up is that it was always important for me to be in an organization that I have valued the ethics of my leaders. And that's important to me because there are often too many companies, as we read out there, as we've done our research, of people who have done the stakeholders wrong, who have done done unethical things to the company. We look at some of the things around Enron and all these other different leaders. And for me, even interesting, I did one when we did our assignment. I did one on the sports ethics on what's his name? I already forgot, but the bicyclist.
Lance Armstrong.
Oh, Lance Armstrong. Yes, I did mine on Lance Armstrong because one of the things that, he is a leader. He was a sports leader. He, had a lot of championships under his belt. And he was then looked at as a liar and a cheater. And then at the same regards, though, he had the Live Strong Foundation, which did some amazing things for cancer patients. So it's interesting, like, even though he was a liar, cheat in his collegiate or his athletic career, he was doing some amazing things, but because the way he was viewed as a liar cheater, it really also reflected on how people thought of him, even though he was doing some great things. So that was interesting in itself for me, to know that when you do something unethical, and you have this platform where you have lots of followers, when you have lots of people looking up to you, even though that you might have done something unethical and then you're doing something that's amazing, that's helping lots of people, you actually ruin your reputation and ruin how people believe continue to have faith and trust you because of the unethical aspect to it. So that was very interesting to me.
I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, Julissa, with Lance Armstrong. I didn't really think of that kind of perspective, and I went with more like the business aspect and was kind of, so it's interesting you kind of brought up Enron, because I'm going to say I watched a couple episodes, but I actually binge watched full seasons of Mr. Robot. And, you know, it's about this guy who's a hacker, and the main corporation is eCore. So it's kind of like a nod to Enron. So, you know, the heads of the company just covered up this toxic spill through a town that people died, and it kind of affects, you know, the moral just kind of tendencies that people should have. And, you know, while this is a TV show, I mean, this is something that happens in real life with major companies, you know, and what really is their motivator? I mean, their moral motivation isn't to do what's best for the people, isn't to do what's best for the company and the business. It's, you know, strictly about dollars and cents. So I think that was an interesting perspective with Lance, though. That's pretty cool.
I'm kind of curious to see if anybody else's organization has like ethical advisors, because I know for the military, we actually have ethical advisors. So that'll tell you that one individual, you could go to them and say, hey, I'm kind of thinking about doing this. I'm not sure if it's going to get me in trouble or if it's going to keep me out of trouble. And I'm just kind of curious if you have ethical advisors.
I'll let you take that one, Michael.
Well, I mean, for us, I don't actually know on like a corporate level, because I don't work corporate for Starbucks. But for how I view it is that those people would be like the store manager kind of, because they know what's going on with the store and like how to run it and everything like that. So if I have a question of whether or not I should do a certain thing, I would ask I guess the leader in that case would be the store manager, because they would know that answer. And sometimes, I mean, that helps them know, like learn more about their job as well, because sometimes you'll bring up something and they won't know what the answer is to that solution or to that problem. And so they'll look into it because it's like, oh, I have no idea how to do this thing or just whatever it may be. And everybody kind of learns from that in the end. But yeah, I mean, to me, I think, or at least in my position, I would say that like the store managers from Starbucks would be those, even though they're not, that's not their title at all. And then the same way for like baristas to shift supervisors, because I'm a shift supervisor, they would do the same thing. Like they would ask me if like, hey, I want to do this, can I do this? And I'll give them like, well, you probably could, but it's probably not a good idea or something like that. And just give them advice on how to go about a certain solution. So yeah, I would say there are. It's just I don't know if there's actual name position of like ethical supervisor.
Yeah, and so for corporate, I work in corporate at Starbucks, and we do have a team. They're not like where they go out and meet with all of us, but there is a team behind the scenes that anything that becomes unethical, they do push out. We do have in corporate, I don't know if any other organizations have this, but where you have to like look at videos and do kind of like it's not a survey, but some kind of like training on like sexual harassment, on ethical issues, on different type of things that are like a yearly thing that we have to do, and we keep paying that we have to make sure that we're doing it. And then there's also I think, but I believe they're sitting in our legal department. I can't think of their names, but I don't know if they're advisors, but definitely as things happen, we definitely use them, and we go to them if we have any questions as we're doing things in corporate anyways, that can help us, like, you know, even if we do any, like when I travel or when I do any relationship management and I'm meeting with any government, making sure that I'm not giving them any money or giving them any gifts, things of that nature that I have to make sure that I'm aware of before I go out to meet with some of them. So we're trained on some of the things that you can and can't do. So, and then also when you become a new partner or a new employee, there's a section on ethical behavior as well.
Yeah, our legal department for the military is
Right.
the advisor for us. And then we also have the inspector general, which is the office that I used to work in. It's almost like an internal affairs of the police department. So sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. We're there to help the organization as a whole. So we're there to, mentor, guide, and direct and recommend to the higher leadership, what's right versus they might have missed something or made a mistake, or the soldier missed something, made a mistake. So it's very beneficial, I think, to actually have an ethical advisor that's an actual legal person.
Right.
You really know, hey, can you use this government vehicle to go to dinner in a bar? Well, how does the civilian population look at that when they see a government vehicle outside of a bar at 7 o'clock at night? Do they go, oh wow, it's a military person or a government worker that might be utilizing this car on as their own versus utilizing it for the purpose it was meant to utilize?
Right.
It's taxpayers' money's involved.
I think that's when you're looking at taxpayer-funded programs such as the military and the fire department. Those things are often under constant scrutiny from the public.
Yeah.
They have every once in a while. They have articles that come out in the paper or something. So the firefighters are paid too much money, and they get paid to sleep, and they get paid to sit in the recliners and watch TV and play Xbox and do those things, which can happen, but during the course of the shift. But they're not realizing that they're paying for people to be there on call and drop everything at a moment's notice. They don't often realize, that in the middle of dinner or cooking dinner, the alarm goes off. Okay, we'll turn the stove off, come back, and to a cold dinner, and they don't realize some of the sacrifices that end up being made, and the stress on our bodies and stuff by waking up consistently throughout the night and having to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour.
Right.
But often, people would always. I've had people come up and say, we park the engine at the parking lot and go in and buy food, and like, oh, you're using the fire engine to go do your shopping. I'm like, well, we've got to shop and eat for dinner tonight. We have to buy our own food. So we all kick in $20 and we go in and buy the station's dinner.
Right.
And people don't understand that, and we have to go use the fire engine to go to the grocery store because we have to be with it in case we have a call. But
Right.
we've had people go, that's unethical, that's stealing, and it's wrong. But I think sometimes when these ethical situations come up, people don't often know the whole story and the whole picture. And I blame the media for that. I think that sometimes people who report on things give a part of a picture and not the entire picture.
Right.
I also think within the media, and specifically that I don't think that a lot of time it's not even that they don't have the full picture, it's that they don't actually have the picture at all. And it's more about a lot of time getting a headline or anything. So I've done not necessarily of anything of importance, but I did kind of journalism for a video games website. And a lot of it had to do with getting traffic on the website and all that stuff, and making sure that you come up with interesting things that come out and anything like that. And a lot of it is just getting a headline for the most part and making sure that people come to the website. And I think that's true for even bigger newspapers, like a Tribune or something like that. I think that's how it normally is for the most part, because it feels like not a lot of people have their sources or anything like that. And it all gets scrambled up, and in the end you find out that none of that is true whatsoever and all that stuff.
Right.
Not to say that all news is wrong or anything like that, but yeah.
It's interesting when you talk about ethics of the news and the media, because you look at old reporters like Walter Cronkite and stuff like that back in the day, where they would actually sit and report the news, versus now they hire people to interpret the news and tell you to break it down and tell you what you really should be thinking about it and break it down for you. But it's become too opinionated, so it's not objective as it once was. And here's the news, and then the listener will then break it apart and make their own decision about what they heard versus now this is what happened and this is why you need to think this and that, and it makes it hard to discern between real news and then the new fake news that's around.
Yeah, and I mean, like a lot of people choose the news station or whatever they want to listen to usually by like political affiliation. So I mean, like some news networks are affiliated mostly with the Democratic Party, some are with the Republican Party. So it's definitely like much more opinionated, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But
Yeah.
Right.
I do think it sometimes leads to not like just the news and just the facts. So.
Yeah, well, we definitely know that with this candidacy and this in the political environment we're in right now, without taking any sides, definitely ethical has come up quite a bit and has been on top of mind and has been on top of the list for sure. So it'll be fun to continue to watch and see ethics. So with that, I think we're out of time. So thanks again, everyone, for your time today. And we'll see you guys at the next one.
All right. Next week.